Hopefully it works.
Oh, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, 3,000.
Do 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 do. Seriously, you're gonna be like this to me? Same as it ever was. Nope, that's not what I want. All right, Sebastian said he'd be here momentarily. I need to change this view because that's not right. Multi-view. Skype 3. Don't need to look at my ugly mug. Sebastian Peak is online. That'll work. God, why is your gate popping? Down more. Can you hear me now? Hey, Sebastian. That's fun. Might have to actually have your mic open on the outgoing. Ooh, yeah, that's loud.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now.
Right.
It's so weird having that third Skype channel over here. I will admit. It's like, oh wait, I need 3 today. Don't need set. Don't need aux. Just 4 of them. Be fun. Now I don't have a place on this left monitor over here to sneak my cursor through. Usually I go where Sebastian's screen is. Now I get this little stupid little popover.
Just float it above them. It'll be fine.
Hey, Josh is online.
He is? Well, wonders never cease. Ooh, does this little thing work? Ooh, yay! Hello, XSplit.
Hey, Josh.
Hey!
Uh-oh.
You're awful fast.
That's what she said?
Yep.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens. Let me get my stuff together.
Get your stuff together. Do. Ooh, that's a good question. We have lots of questions.
Lots and lots of them. Got to change my glasses because these reflect too much.
You gotta be able to see.
But it kind of gives me an air of mystery.
mystery.
Mm.
Makes you look even more like a school teacher.
Isn't that part of your parole that you can't do that, Josh?
Pretty much.
Hmm.
I can't be within
doing the Alan.
150 feet of the KY Jelly Factory.
Still don't think that was really your fault.
It was totally coyotes.
There I was.
Just a simple slip up.
Doing sit-ups in the zucchini patch. Naked.
As you do. Bet the doctors didn't believe you, though.
Well, 1 in a million shot, Doc.
Then why have I seen 3 people already today?
Run, Alex, run! You can't hear me. Boy, if anybody ever burgled that place, that would be awful.
They just stand around in great confusion wondering what to take.
This is true.
That's not the air conditioner. That's a rainstorm. And
Oh, that would be
How
nice.
thick is Josh? That's a good question. Thick.
I think my sunroof's closed. I hope it is. It looked closed.
Burp.
No, well.
Why don't you just stay out of the elevators? Had to rescue some people stuck in an elevator in Toronto today in a flash flood. Elevator was in
Oh,
the
I heard
basement,
about
and
that.
apparently there's about a foot worth of breathing air. The rest of it was submerged.
Ooh.
That was. I saw pictures. That's impressive.
God, that's
My
that was-
Roseville Rise arrived today, so I feel like I should go get it so at least one of us has a box behind them. Now that Sebastian's moved.
But now, what?
Oh, I'm just saying, my new case just arrived, and I feel like I should have it behind me now, so at least one of us has a giant wall of cases behind them.
You know, I thought
Or
about
it's
doing
a
that,
single.
and it's such a mess. I would have had to clean just to podcast. I'm not doing that.
Nah, we're not worth that.
There's a glob of something like 40 cases in one corner of my basement, and I was going to spread it out and make like a 3 sides of a house and sit in the middle of it with one light shining on me and a camera, but we'll save that for another day.
All right.
That's a good plan.
It's like my own nightmare, and maybe there's a part of me that doesn't want to realize it.
What does your wife think of all the cases?
It's
It's a point of contention.
a little bit. As long as I can keep it contained. The problem is they were all over the place. I only recently started consolidating.
That's nuts. It's cool, but it's nuts.
Yeah, cases are large. Alan has it easy. SSDs are small. You can stack them.
It's true.
Oh, and NVMe. just gum sticks.
Even
You can
smaller.
put 5 in a pack.
You know, like a
Slip it in your
tackle
pocket.
box and just put like a little stack of NVMEs in each little compartment.
Yeah. All right. So
Cases
how do we
are-
want to do this? Do you just want Alex to read them off as we go along and we answer, or?
I'd be fine with doing that.
Yeah, that would make it
Okay.
easy. I don't have to scroll through and try to find the questions.
Well, we got the questions list is over on the QA channel on Slack.
I see.
Um,
Is the QA channel new, Alex? Did you just
yeah,
create
I
this?
just created that for tonight.
Sure
I like
is.
this.
I figured, yeah, we don't need the main channel. Just blah 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 blah.
No, you can't get tetanus from Threadripper 2 pins because it doesn't have any pins.
Good question.
Okay. I mean, that's a pretty good list of questions here.
Yeah. Well, we'll just start picking them off,
That
just
sounds
like my
good.
nose.
You can pick your questions and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your questions nose.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the questions he's seen.
Nobody knows. This is the most ghetto titling setup I've ever done.
What the questions at the bottom?
Yeah.
Are you just like selecting a portion of the screen?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's Yeah.
Change the colors. Make it like black with.
well, it may or
That's
may not be a
complicated.
IRC client sitting on the laptop next to me.
Can't you customize the colors on the IRC client?
I didn't have enough time.
Okay. Great.
If this turns into a total train wreck, we just won't publish it.
Yeah. I guess we can, when we start, just focus on me. I'll do a quick
Yes.
little introduction. Talk about Patreon, that stuff, and then we'll get into the questions. And there you go.
That
Good.
sounds like a plan to me. Do you want to do the title rotation on us or the intro rotation per usual, and then
No, because it's going to be question by question. We're going to introduce each other. Jeremy. There's Jeremy. Sebastian.
Yo.
Yeah. So it'll be, it'll be quick. To the point.
Mildly painless.
Mildly.
3 hours later?
All right. You guys ready?
No, I got a CT scan at freaking 7 a.m. tomorrow, so I can't be too late.
To your back?
No, apparently I've got a gout issue.
Gout sucks.
Wonderful.
Give me like 30 seconds here. I need to grab another
Sure.
beer.
But mine is only real, only if I drink pretty hard for a week, I'll get gout pain in either my ankle or usually my ankle. And sometimes my fingers get a little stiff, but
Yeah.
it's then lots of water and take some gout medicine and clean living for the next week, and goes away perfectly fine for the next couple of months until I go on a real bender.
Yeah, mine's probably a plumbing problem. With the plus side being the doctor said it doesn't matter what the hell you eat or drink, it's just going to keep getting worse.
Huh.
So,
Yeah,
I mean,
mine is
there's a good
definitely
side and a bad side.
Yeah, no, mine's definitely food and drink related.
Yep.
Well, it's mostly drink related. It's alcohol.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
alcohol's-
not like I drink every day. It's not
Well,
like I
when
drink
you
every
do.
other day. But
every
sometimes you
night?
just go on a little bit of a tear, and I'm 46 years old. Stuff breaks down.
Yep.
Yeah, you think they designed these bodies a little bit better.
Well, they're only designed to last 35 years, and we've really
Yep.
pushed that.
Damn, I'm already past my warranty.
Yep. You ready?
Sure.
All right. 3, 2. Welcome to the Not PC Perspective podcast. This is not a podcast. Do not expect that. This is simply a Q&A session that we'll be doing live with the people who are in IRC through Twitter and any other way that they can get a hold of us, except no papers. We don't deliver papers, and we no longer have a phone that you can call. But we have plenty of questions. Joining us here tonight are Jeremy, Sebastian, and that one guy, otherwise known as Alex. He's controlling the board. The rest of the gang
Josh
are
Tech.
out and about. I believe that Ken is at an Intel dealie.
Mhm.
Ryan is on another vacation. And where the hell's Alan at now?
He's at a storage summit, I think, of some sort.
Nice.
Oh, the Flash Summit.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Well,
that's kicking off right now.
that's a lot of fun. So the thing that we're going to do here is Alex is going to be reading off questions. You can ask it to any one of us except those not present. And it doesn't matter who, myself, Jeremy, Sebastian, even Alex, because he's the man behind the screen. He's the man behind the curtain. He makes all of the magic work. And if you ever want to know anything about that magic, and let me tell you, it's magical, that's the man to ask. So, Alex, go ahead and throw out the first question. Oh, wait, no, should we say, if you feel like donating and want to have more of these type of things, think about joining our Patreon. It's at, what is the patreon.com/PCPer. Give us a couple of bucks a month if you like to see this kind of stuff. We've kind of given up a little bit on the goals. We've if people continue to give us and increase it a little bit, I mean, it motivates us to do more things like this. Something that, is a little bit off the beaten path. Some things that are away from the normal. I mean, it's kind of fun to get away from just a regular podcast. It's something that we can get into with people. I mean, we have the mailbag. We'll still be doing that, but there's something different about a live event. And boy, you can say some really interesting off-the-cuff things. And yeah. You can find us at twitter.com/PCPer. I'm at twitter.com/JoshDWalrath. The other guys can tell their things that they're on. But yeah, let's start with the questions, Alex.
Alrighty, let's see if this thing works. Yes, it does. Wonders will not cease tonight. It's going to be great. All right, so Lucid Mew, and if I get any of these pronunciations wrong, sorry. First question, why don't we have SMT on GPUs like Intel, AMD, IBM do on their CPUs?
I can probably answer that. And the answer is you really don't need it. A CPU is a really complex thing. GPUs are complex things, but they're complex because they're made up of tens of thousands of not as complex things. And so they've got instructions flying through that GPU like you wouldn't believe. And if you were to add SMT, SMT on top of that, it would make it even more complex at the front end. And so they really don't need it because their utilization is extremely high. Now, what SMT does is it does multiple threads through a single core, and the front end decode can kind of interleave instructions from one thread or the other, and it'll more maximize the throughput of any single CPU core. But because GPUs are they're relatively short as compared to steps. I mean, you've got the execution units. I mean, there's just thousands of them in there already, and they're being utilized at a very high level because you have workflows that are very, very generic as compared to like CPUs, which can be extremely varied. And so you don't really need SMT and GPUs. It would only add more confusion, more kind of chaos at the front end. And I don't think you would see throughput really rise to any significant amount if you had implemented that. So yeah, GPUs do not particularly need that because they're just, they're smaller, simpler execution units as compared to just, a large, gigantic CPU. So yeah, they may do some things in the front end that kind of load up threads, but they've got like 128,000 threads in flight at any one time in a modern GPU. It's just a huge amount. So yeah, talking about, hey, I've got SMT on my GPU, it's people just kind of scratch their head in the industry. It's like, That's a nice line that you're spreading around, because it just, it's the workloads they can be similar, but when you really look down at a granular level, I mean, it's very, very different, because it's a lot of small work going on that's processed very, very quickly and put together and done at an incredibly high rate. And yeah, SMT just kind of falls apart. So, I mean, they've never implemented it, and they probably never will, that I know of. Next, unless somebody else has any other kind of thoughts on the matter.
I won't even pretend to.
Just no.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Oh, nope. Over here. All right. What's up next? I'll get in the groove here. Of course it wrapped. UTP216, I want to know if PC-Per got a Threadripper 2 kit from AMD, and if so, are they going to build an awesome workstation with it, which is off the side of the screen there. I'll just go ahead and answer that. Yes, we did. We believe, did our article go up yet on the site about the unboxing? I don't think we did.
No unboxing yet.
Nah, that's
Does
sad.
you guys have the nice little screen thing of PC-Per on there on the chip?
No, they didn't have that nice little.
Oh,
I know, that was awesome. That was the awesomest things out of the whole kit. But yes, we did get the hardware in. We will be doing an awesome workstation with it, and once our embargoes lift, we will have an article for it. And
Were you allowed to even say that you got it in?
Well, yeah, our unboxing embargo went up.
The unboxing's already.
Oh, okay.
Everyone's already
the
unboxed, cut a hole in the box, and been showing it off.
Put your heatsink in the box.
If it fits.
Have you seen that heatsink? Are we allowed
It's
to
a heatsink in a box.
Let me go grab this thing real
What
quick.
is the
CES,
TDP of the
didn't
chip?
they?
It's 250 watts, right?
The Wraith Ripper?
Yeah, it's 250 watts for
What
the
do you even-
workstation.
Is
It's
it
bigger than
air?
mine.
So would Mori is going to be proud of this thing.
Holy
this.
hell, that's almost a small engine block.
It is. It is a small motor engine block. This thing is huge.
Well, that'd be like a 4 horsepower lawnmower can fit in that size.
So is there like
Computer
one
started up?
central
Yep.
fan? or
No,
what's
no,
going
you'll
on with
be
that
able to
thing?
tell. You'll be able to tell.
Here we
There's
go.
a delta fan in each end.
This up here. Yes, that is a huge heatsink.
All right, now my Noctua with 140 mil fans just doesn't seem so big anymore.
I think that's definitely bigger than a D14 from Noctua.
I can go get it and show it to you. Yes, it's definitely bigger.
Yeah.
Because I did pick one up for my Threadripper 1 build.
As time has passed, that
About-
Noctua fan it's kind of become sort of a medium size for a large air cooler.
Well, it's still a bloody kilo and a half. Better part of 3 pounds. That thing's got to weigh more.
Yeah, it's heavy. I mean, you're looking.
Heavy.
What the Threadripper chip itself is like a third of a pound, and then
It's a lot of metal on that heat spreader.
it
and-
is,
Yeah.
and that heat sink's probably 3 pounds, maybe.
Our
Give or take?
standard
Well, no, it's mine is.
case.
My TR14 is. So that's bigger. It's going to weigh more.
I mean, just think of the thermal density overall of not just the heat sink, but also of that heat spreader as well. I mean, you could pack a lot of therms in that before, things really start to rise. I mean, but once they do start to rise, you got to remove it quickly. But yeah, that's some serious density in there. You're
And I
my
think that
density.
I think we were kind of a little bit amused when they started releasing reinforced PCIe slots. It's like, yeah, okay, now can you reinforce my CPU slot too, just in case?
Well, we need 12 layers on this motherboard, not because we need it electrically, but we needed the extra, structural integrity that the extra layers of copper give us.
Or a motherboard
There's a
backplate.
little Kevlar mixed in with the glass.
Yeah.
Something like that, you'd think you'd need stronger like case standoffs and a thicker board for sure. or else you're going to get some warping or bowing. I guess it depends on how the how it mounts, because I know there's a back plate behind the CPU on those. So
I
Could be okay.
think the weight's going to be spread around pretty well. And plus, you're not going to find a motherboard with less than 9 screws
Yeah.
in there. And, that big old back on the back of the Threadripper. So,
Yeah, back in the days when you could say, 4 screws, that's enough screw it. I don't need to do the rest of them. I
Yeah.
do them all now.
yeah. Can I get some more, please? All right, moving on to the next one.
Yeah, I know we have the board here, but it's got another cooler on it. I'm not sure how substantial the backplate is or what we can tell about that. But I think that'll be up in a week, give or take.
Yep.
I know. Stay tuned. All right. Next up, Mirror. I don't know. How do you even pronounce this? Is it Mirror PPC? I don't know.
Mirror PPC, yeah.
Mirror PC. Why are Cherry MY, this is not a typo, MY, switches no longer used or sold? There was a little bit of chatter about this in the chat, and apparently they're their membrane series. Anyone?
It's because they were produced with asbestos.
Well, that's coming back again,
Of
though.
course. When were they even introduced? Wasn't that a relatively newer thing? Let's see. Spring over membrane keyboard switch series. Oh, this is older. Okay. 2013.
I bet it just would
Unknown.
wear out.
Hmm.
I mean, the membranes, it's going to be some kind of polymer plastic. And when you're rubbing up against a metal spring, what do you think?
Marketing.
Marketing?
Well, think about this. Like the mechanical key switches are the popular gamer keyboard category, and now you have not only are there cheaper and cheaper options with actual Cherry switches. Like you can buy a $79 keyboard with Cherry MX Reds or Browns or Blues. And then there are the third-party equivalents. I don't know where a membrane switch would really sit in the market. Would Cherry want to be associated with like a membrane switch? I wonder if those are for the more like the business side, because Cherry does like industrial and business keyboards too, right?
That'd make more sense with a membrane.
Right, because you're looking for lower volume.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, we don't have a really good answer for that, so best get on to the next question.
So the peanut gallery gets a point on that one?
Yes.
They
Bastion,
stumped the
0.
idiots, which isn't hard to do.
No.
All right, what we got up next here? The Celeron
Ooh.
question.
Is it spicy? Is it saucy?
It's a little bit saucy. All right, so John W. posits a question: is Celeron versus Atom?
Adam?
Wouldn't that be AD? Never mind. Is that still a big deal? Looking to use a Zotac Z-Box as a pfSense router? And he asks, continues, multi-line one. Look at this.
Hmm.
No,
I think
can't use
Josh
a
and I
mouse.
can co-answer this one. Because I have reviewed a very similar Z-Box. It was like a CI300 series, but I don't remember the model. Mine had a Haswell dual-core chip in it, though. A lot of the mini PCs and a lot of these Celeron Atom thing, it's just branding, really, because there are some processors that are literally Atom that are Celeron, and then there are some that are like quad-core that now get like a Pentium branding when they're in really inexpensive, like 2-in-1 laptops, like the $250 to $300 Dell laptops have what I think is actually an Atom-based solution. So, Josh, is Atom essentially in order, or did it ever move on to like out of order?
I think the very latest is out of order, but again, don't quote me on that. I can't remember, just because Intel has been pushing away kind of the Atom branding, but what we do know is that Atom still is smaller than a Celeron, which is still based on the core architecture. And so even though they have improved the Atom functionality, because they've gone to lower process nodes, and they can fit more in and still be really, really small and really power efficient. But a lot of these Atoms are, especially for PF Sense boxes, and Synology has their NAS, that they all run on these 8-core Atoms, and they run really, really well on that, just because you've got a ton of threads. People know how to do multi-threading, and a lot of storage work and routing stuff is it's a lot more easily multi-threaded. I mean, when used to run Squid boxes back in the day, they would have a nice little jump when you had larger caches and more threads, so you could throw at the problem, because somebody would make a request, and one CPU would take that, another CPU would do it, and it would fill up IOs and do all kinds of stuff at the same time. That it was nice to have the extra cores and the extra oomph. And so I wouldn't be afraid of having an Atom. I mean, the work that I work at, my regular job, we've got a net extend. I can't remember exactly the group who does it, but it's PF Sense box, and it's an 8-core Atom in there, and it handles 200 people in the office without an issue. And so Celeron, any kind of Celeron thing, it's probably going to be bigger. It's going to be fewer cores, and even though your IPC in that would be improved over Atom, the workloads that you're going to be doing in those kind of areas is not going to reflect that. And so you probably want more threads available rather than a faster core with far fewer cores. Does that make sense to you, Jeremy?
Yeah, it does. And I did some quick digging while you were reading, because I was thinking that it was Silvermont that was the first ones that were out of order. And strangely enough, I was actually right. But that's going back to 2013. Right, previous to 2013, when you picked up an Atom, you were picking up a specifically designed ultra low power and frankly ridiculously low performance chip. After that, it became Silvermont, then they moved on to Cherry Trail and Bay Trail, where it's usually pretty much the same architecture as a lot of the main SKUs, just brought down significantly in power consumption. But honestly, I mean, they've got onboard GPU, and just grabbing one like the 70 or the 8750, bursts up to 2.5 gigahertz. And 4 cores, 4 threads. I mean, that's a decent chip. And if all you're asking for is a PF Sense box, you're laughing. It's more than enough for that. So don't think of Atoms like you used to. Atoms used to be, no, just stay away from it unless, you're trying to run a cable box. Nowadays, no, if it fits and that's what you're looking for is something low power that you can fit in a tiny little space, makes perfect sense.
Cool. Well, I think that answers that, and I'm glad I'm not muted for a change. Alex,
For
unless
once, you're not
anybody else
muted.
has any answers to that. Sebastian, any closing thoughts?
No, I think you said more than I could ever say.
And I have nothing else as well, because you covered that extremely well.
Oh,
All right.
thank you. Stroke that ego. Stroke it harder, faster. All right. Anyway, next.
No.
Yeah, we'll just let that imagery settle in for a moment. All right, so we have random user QK8J04. WTF is going on with Windows, specifically 10, but this is a long-term thing. Caching 8 to 12 gigs of RAM. I'm assuming this is on a 16 gig box. Using 8 maxes out RAM, causing shutter or jitter in games.
Hmm.
Stop
This is not.
I
We're
have
not talking
not
about page
run
file
into-
usage here.
Woo!
running the virtual machine that's doing your coin mining while you're gaming. That you may or may not know about.
Yeah, unless you're
Something wrong
running
there.
Chrome at the same time and Edge and a couple other things and Dogecoin, I don't know what is going on with that, because I run I'm a sysadmin at a place not as big as Jeremy's place. And, we run a lot of high performance machines that do a lot of serious number crunching. And oddly enough, they use some of these statisticians just use their desktops and Windows 10. And I mean, they have these huge R packages that take up, 16 to 64 gigs of memory. And I'm not seeing this kind of caching that you're speaking of. So there might be something else running in the background that's hurting you that you don't know about. Because throughout
unless this
the
is my
last
father.
year of updates, go ahead.
If this is my father, it's because you have 18 tabs open, 12 of which are online games that you're playing, and you're trying to play Stellaris at the same time. So yes, all your RAM is being used up, strangely. Sign out of Elvenar or whatever it is. Permanently.
Oh, I'm a Linux user, as I've mentioned many, many times on here all the time. And I will be the first one in line to throw Windows under the bus. But with Windows 10, when I've been forced to use it here at other places, it's been surprisingly good besides the, forced advertisement thing. But modern operating systems cache aggressively. And if there's jitter or shutter, and that's combined with I/O, that's the key point. There's actually I/O happening that's causing this shutter, then yeah, I agree with everyone else. Something is sucking resources. If there's no correlation to system load, then you're going down the line of, R&R drivers. Start pulling stuff out, see what's broken.
Grab Process Explorer and take a peek. It's a good thing to have anyways.
God, that's such a great tool.
Yeah.
Cool. We've solved the world's problems. Next.
Now we cause them?
Now we cause them. Oh yeah, this one's a good one. This is from Lucid Mew. What was more impactful to computing in general, x86-64 or copy, paste?
Or copy paste? No, definitely copy paste.
Copy paste, that's really important. Or multi-core on a single chip or die. Who wants
What
it?
has had a bigger impact on the sandwich industry? Peanut butter or jelly? That's from my point of view, that's kind of what you're looking at. I mean, both had massive impacts on how we do our work. We suddenly got rid of all of these memory constraints. Because we got rid of all these memory constraints, we could do more things. But to do more things, we needed more processor. And so add another processor to the mix. And suddenly, we're really cooking with gas. So it's not exactly a chicken or an egg thing. But, x86-64 came out before most dual-core stuff. I mean, certainly there was dual-core, quad-core before then. But that was, primarily server machines. And it really wasn't until, Intel came out with the P4D and AMD with the Athlon 64X2 that we had consumers that could actually utilize that kind of functionality. Yeah, before that, I mean, I had a couple of Athlon MP processors that I ran in a Tyan dual socket and motherboard. Well before that were the people with the, what was that 8-bit board? I think I've got one up in the corner, but it's kind of buried. The BP6,
something like that.
It
was one of the first dual processor.
Intel's first dual capable socket chip for a consumer was the P55C Pentium MMX.
Yeah.
They had stuff before that because
that was Pro though, wasn't it?
The 430HX chipset could support dual CPUs, and that was their higher end. And it was the I don't know, I don't think it was the P55C. I could be wrong, but
I
430HX was the chipset to have if you were kind of a power user in the Windows world with Intel. Because that was the same time as the 430 TX, and I can't remember the crappy version of the 430 series. I mean, the TX was kind of crappy because it was kind of cut down from the 430 HX. And there was something else. It was like a D. It wasn't the DX, but anyway,
No.
this is all.
That's a little older
This is
than
all
that.
25 years ago.
Sorry to send
and
you
I
down the
can't-
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Well, I can think of a different way to look at it.
Oh, there it is. Knight Rider.
Back when
254
AMD
and HX
first-
gives you dual socket and 512 meg of RAM, not gig. Knight. Yeah, the 430 FX was the crap.
Yeah,
Crap,
there you
crap,
go.
crap. You didn't want it. You wanted the HX, or at least the
Yeah.
newer TX, because that supported SD-RAM.
You don't have a cheat sheet, Josh? Just hanging up on the wall?
I can barely remember that. I'm 46 years old. My mind is not nearly as sharp as it used to be.
Yeah, the only reason I know the P55 was dual capable because that was my first computer.
Cool.
Yeah. But anyway,
Anyway, what do you guys think about the dual core versus x86-64?
I was going to say we could look at it a different way. Remember when AMD was touting the fact that they had real dual core? It wasn't just a pretend extra core. They took longer to get it on the market, but when they did, it was not multi-threading. It was one core per one thread, and they said this is the future. And then honestly, they bet the farm on it. It didn't work out as well as they would have liked. They were right. They were just maybe a little bit too far ahead of the time and decided to go a more difficult way, which I respect, but at the same time, kind of they're still recovering from today. So in that way, like they did 64-bit much more successfully than they did the multiple core when they first launched it back in the day. So you could sort of say, at least for AMD, the 64-bit jump was more impressive for them. It was more impactful for them. The multi-core, it's turned out that, yeah, they were right and everything is going multi-core now, but it didn't have a great impact on their market share, or at least not a positive one. So in that way, I'd almost say that the 64-bit it opened up more, and without it, why would you even have multiple cores? Why would you bother to continue doing dual sockets? You've hit this memory ceiling where it just doesn't make sense, and you've got to do some very bizarre things to try and get more than your 4 gigs of RAM going. Or, well, 3.76.
Right, 4 gigs including video memory.
Yes.
So yeah, I think 64-bit was a big deal because it allowed bigger frame buffers, and you could still have 4 or then 8 and now 16, 32 gigs of memory. And multi-core really is application specific. The OS has to be able to utilize it properly, which has obviously happened as Windows has matured. Games starting a few years ago really started taking advantage of 4 cores or more. It really is still very specific to which title and whether it's single core kind of limited or whether it's really multi-core aware and how efficient the software is written. So you can optimize for multi-threaded CPUs, but 64-bit enabled vast improvements in system performance by enhancing, if nothing else, just the amount of system memory and VRAM you could have installed on a system.
Yes,
yeah, that pretty
I
that
agree
covers
with all
it.
those things. I mean, it's technology walking hand in hand into the future. I mean, it's a lot of good stuff. But I guess, if we were to weigh one against the other, the biggest thing was probably x86-64 because it removed so many limitations from programmers, and we have these vast, interesting worlds because we can address huge amounts of memory that we could not beforehand. So I think that's probably my positive.
Ultimately, all we ever needed was one CPU core and then like endless RAM drive. You don't need anything else. No hard drives. Just a terabyte.
If I only
DDR4
had a 10 gigahertz processor, this would all be moot. and probably mute too. But anyway,
Well, you can have your 10 gigahertz processor, but it'd only be doing half an operation per clock cycle.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's just spinning and burning rubber.
We'll just call it double pumped. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
All right. Next up, Biohazard. What do you think has gone wrong with Intel's 10 nanometer process?
What do you mean wrong? There's nothing wrong. It's all going perfectly according to plan. Ignore
Hey,
those
look,
other
it's
people.
Baghdad Bob. AMD is impaling themselves and spreading their intestines across the battlefield, trying to get their 7 nanometer to work. Yeah, no. Boy, that's a question everybody's asking. I think to generalize it all, I would say it was just, and I've said this before, it was a bridge too far. The tolerances were too tight. They had to integrate new materials in that they had never used before. They had to make everything try to come together, which in theory sounded good. But when you start talking about materials and tolerances and self-aligning quad patterning, the issues that they had with that at the dimensions that they were working at, it was just too much. And so from what I understand, they brought in some of the guys working on 7 nanometer, took them back. They've redone 10, and they've loosened some things up. I mean, they've changed things, and so there's somebody out there, I think it was Charlie said, it's essentially it's a 12 nanometer process versus what was previously 10 nanometer. But this is all marketing at this time, because when you said, hey, I had a 1 micron process, that typically measured the smallest feature on whether that's gate pitch or whatever, that the process enabled. And we've kind of gotten away from that. And so now it's more marketing terms. But yeah, for the technology, the development, the tools that they had, their 10 nanometer using self-aligning quad patterning just didn't work consistently. I mean, you'd get maybe a couple of good chips at the bin that you're looking at, but the yields were horrific. You had lots of non-functioning chips, not just those that didn't run at expected speeds at certain power. Some just didn't run at all. I mean, it's mind-boggling to go into these kind of deep dives and process technology, because it just, how any of it works is beyond me. It's pure magic. So yeah, I think it was just a combination of issues that they were too aggressive on the tolerances, the dimensions that they were working at and they're aiming at. Again, they threw in a couple of extra variables by using cobalt, I believe, for the first 2 layers, and then copper for the rest. And that was for electromigration reasons. But cobalt is like half of the conductivity of copper. I think it was just too much too soon, and they couldn't work out the kinks in a timely enough manner and on budget. And so Intel, they were originally expecting some of the first 10 nanometer stuff to come out in 2015. And now we're in the second half of 2018, and they're looking at second half of 2019 to have this kind of revamped 10 nanometer process out. I mean, they'll get it out. It's going to work. It's still going to be pretty good. And I think in many ways it's going to be very comparable to what we see from the current generation of TSMC, what Global Foundries is going to release here in the second half of the year. But I think that part of the problem is just going to be, we need to go to EUV for better patterning, better litho, and that will solve quite a few problems, because you have to have fewer passes on the litho side, and there are fewer chances of something really bad happening to a chip when you do that. So maybe that will be one of the bigger fixes. I don't know. I think it's complex. I mean, if it was easy, anybody could do it. Obviously, it's not easy. It costs billions of dollars. It takes thousands of really, really smart people, far smarter than I am, to get this stuff to run, to be able to look at your triple monitor setup with a 16 core CPU and graphics card that has insane amount of throughput. It's just magical. Anybody else have anything?
Nope. Nope.
I
Nope.
don't know what kind of dance Intel's doing anymore. Some sort of freeform breakdancing or something.
Sure.
Well, Josh, this actually kind of brings up the next question then.
Uh-oh.
For Mr. Ranger. What are the chances AMD can or will demonstrate a lead in process tech when Zen 2 launches? That wrapped.
Pretty dang good. I mean, they're already sampling their first generation of 7 nanometer chips. AMD has their 7 nanometer EPYC. They're going to have the 7 nanometer Vega a little later on this fall. And yeah, it's TSMC, even though they call it 7 nanometer, it's not really 7 nanometer, but it is better than Intel's 14 nanometer by a significant degree. It's probably closer to the initial Intel 10 nanometer, except they were not as aggressive in some of the things they did. And so, possibly SRAM's a little bit bigger, gates are bigger and some of the other dimensions. And so your density will not be as good as what Intel's theoretical 10 nanometer was, but it works. And that's something that they have over Intel. And not only that, but they get good yields out of it. And it's pumping out chips, I think, already. So they're going to have probably a good 9 months of EPYC 7 nanometer sales, as well as Vega 7 nanometer sales. This is not to say that NVIDIA is not also going to leverage TSMC 7 nanometer. But AMD actually has, kind of a leg up, especially in the CPU. And that's where they're hoping to make some money. The desktop is going to be nice because we're not expecting any kind of huge performance increase, but we are going to experience a density increase as compared to the current GlobalFoundries Samsung 14 nanometers, much denser than TSMC's 16 nanometer, which is actually more akin to their 20 nanometer process with FinFETs. So yeah, AMD is going to have a density advantage over Intel, and they may not have a clock and power advantage, but density counts for a lot. And even the desktop in the second half of 2019, they're going to have a competitive part that's 7 nanometer. It's going to run fast. They're going to have density that Intel can't match, and they're going to probably have pretty good margins for AMD because, AMD is running at like 37% margins right now in their products, and Intel's up at 61. And so if AMD sees a 5 to 10% increase in margins, then they're sitting really pretty because their company is fabless. They run lean anyway. I mean, through many, many years of hardships, they've had to cut the fat from the company. And that's something Intel hasn't had to do yet because they're hitting 61 to 64% margins at kind of the top of the game. But as things get heated next year, if Intel feels that they are losing market share, they're going to lower prices and their margins are going to take a hit just because they can't match the same kind of density that AMD does for these products. So it's going to be interesting to see. AMD has a chance to make some bank. They have some chance to actually claw back some market share in the server market, which Intel has a virtual stranglehold on. And so it's going to be nice to see from, a competitive side. We're going to see prices lower across the board. We're going to see more compute power that can be thrown at issues. And so, people can do more fun and interesting things on their phones because edge computing still isn't quite where we want it to be. And so everything's done in big servers and data centers. And, Facebook people are going to be happy. Amazon's going to be happy. And AMD's they're going to gain some market share because they simply will have a more dense solution that exists in the same kind of power envelope as what Intel has.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Jeremy, you
Yep.
got anything?
Not really on that one. It's going to be interesting to see what Glowfo comes out with.
This is
Or
definitely interesting times. Sebastian, I presume you have nothing to add?
What do you mean you presume?
I presume?
And no, I don't.
That's why
I
I'm
don't.
clarifying. I presume, but I'm asking.
Clarity is good to have.
Clarity is good to have. Sadly, I only have it in
Something that I'm
hindsight.
Lacking.
Find, yes. Find your chi.
My center.
My QI, my recharging pad.
Yes. Your chi
Yes, I will
wireless
find
charging.
it. I will put something on there.
Josh, I'm going to give you a little bit of a break here.
Thank you.
Jeremy, can you do IT support in underwear while at home?
I have in the past. I intend to in the future. So yeah,
All right.
it's just they prefer I come into the office and sadly demand that I dress.
What's the fun in
It's
that?
Have you
stupid hot
ever
right now. You're
tested
lucky I'm
that,
wearing a
though?
shirt right now.
Jeremy, have you ever really put this to the test? Are you just making an assumption that they wouldn't be okay with it, or you just on your own? What is the word?
There was an HR department, and they send out memos including acceptable
Oh,
summer
okay.
wear and.
Understood.
Can you get a religious waiver?
I'm working on it as soon as you guys start becoming a recognized religion instead of just camping out in a church. Once we can become a religion, then I can start working on that. Sorry, I only wear printed circuit boards.
They chafe, but once you get used to it.
And when you take them off at night, oh, it feels so good.
Oh,
You guys are terrible. Terrible. All right. Next up, someone who is not Josh. Because it's not Josh. What are y'all's favorite burgers, beer, whiskey? Choose one. Or choose three. It don't matter.
It have to be a burger, but can it be like a barbecue sandwich?
Sure.
Like pulled pork or, a brisket on a sandwich. Because Memphis Blues does a hell of a one. It is beautiful and wonderful. I'm sure it's horrible for you, and I don't care because I will die happy with one in my mouth.
I don't think there's nothing on that list that's good for you.
Good. And, well, it's got to be Fat Tug. I know that Josh doesn't like IPAs, and I'm fine with that because I'm going to drink them all. But it's a small brewery up here that you're not going to see just about anywhere else. It's just barely started to penetrate to the province next over. It's never gone down south because it's just small batches. So there's a couple of pubs that have it. You can get it in big bottles, and that's just about it. But yeah, it is just lovely. And whatever whiskey is in front of me is usually my favorite. Because I'm not going to complain.
Sebastian,
I'm not knowledgeable enough about, and I have a lot of small breweries around me. Kalamazoo in Michigan has, I don't know, there's 10 all within easy walking distance downtown. But I'm boring with beer. I just get stout, whatever stout is on tap. I usually get Guinness if I'm buying beer at the supermarket. I don't eat red meat, so I have no comment about burgers. I'm out of the game. It's been about 10 years since I've had a burger. And I don't drink liquor. So there you go.
there you have it. Wow, that's
the most boring
Alex should
answer
save us
possible.
all from his clean living.
Someone's got to do it, and he was chosen.
It was, yeah. So, burger-wise, I mean, I have to go with Jeremy on this one. I'm a sucker for a brisket. There are so many good burger joints around here, and I'm always down for a burger. I don't really have a favorite in that regard. Beer, honestly, I'm not a snob on beer. If I'm traveling, it's usually something like a Fat Tire or some other just, commercialized, mass-produced beer, because I'm not drinking it for the taste. I'm drinking it to ignore that I'm in an airport for 12 hours. Whiskey, Knob Creek, hands down, done.
What kind of whiskey?
Knob Creek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that it's up to me now because I've been spoiled. I've been obviously taking pictures on the internet, and well, no, I've been taking pictures in real life and posting on the internet. We got a local place called Born in the Barn. They've got locally sourced beef that's never been frozen, and
Except when it's left out at night in the winter.
I mean, they put it in a regular refrigerator. They don't freeze it though.
No,
don't
I
even
meant the
need
cow
to.
itself.
Oh no, the cow's not in the refrigerator. But anyway, they get it from a local butcher shop, delivered every day, not frozen, and it's really good stuff. And my favorite is their Hayfire, and that's comprised of a half-pound beef patty with pepper relish, chipotle mayo, jalapenos, and pepper jack cheese. And it warms the cockles of my heart. It's a fantastic thing. If you ever come through Laramie, you need to go there and try it. It's off the menu, but if you order a Hayfire, they will happily make one for you, and it's fantastic, especially if you like any kind of heat. Beer, probably my favorite of all time is McEwen Scotch Ale. You can rarely get it around here, but when I do, I really, truly enjoy it. Now, it isn't as good as it used to be because the original McEwen's went out of business. It was bought up by some kind of French firm, and they restarted the line, and it's still good, but it's not as good as it used to be. A number 2 would be Old Speckled Hen. That's probably one of my other go-to favorites. I mean, other than like Bellhaven Scotch Ale, but Old Speckled Hen's probably right up there. And in terms of whiskey, there was a Balvenie 15-year-old that was single barrel. It's fantastic. Otherwise, Tomatin 18-year-old is really good, and for the price, it's pretty fantastic. But I did try a Bruichladdich 25-year-old, and that was a $500 bottle of scotch, and it was fantastic. But I'm not buying a $500 bottle of scotch.
That
Someone
seems
was
to be the problem,
kind enough. They gave me a dram of that to just try because they wanted to try it out. And it was fantastic. There was so much going on. It was so good. But I am not paying $500 for a bottle of scotch that I'll drink in a week.
That reminds me of one of my most enjoyable whiskey experiences. It was on a cruise boat, and the bar was cleaning up after a very long night, and they had a bottle. I think it was Walker 21. It wasn't their super special bottle stuff, but yeah, they
It
drank
didn't have a color associated with it, just a year.
just a year.
Yeah, but you see that very rarely.
It was so good. I think I nursed that thing for 3 hours. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Brings a tear to my eye.
And if I was going to be totally honest, anything out of Port Charlotte is the best friggin' scotch on the planet. But you gotta like.
Yeah.
Bruichladdich, Port Charlotte.
Yeah, it's an old distillery that burnt down ages ago. I think back in the 20s, and Jim McEwen, that was the brewmaster.
Yeah, no. It didn't burn down. Well, it may have burned down at one time, but it closed in the 90s, and they had warehouses full of spirit, and it was reopened up in like 2005. And yeah, Jim McEwen was the distiller who brought it back, and I mean he was one of the guys who kind of revolutionized young aged spirits. I mean,
well, it was the PC4. It was the first one that came out.
Yeah, and so the classic laddie is like maybe 6 years old.
Maybe, yeah.
But they do all kinds of interesting things with their casks and that, and they they've got a good product. And so yeah, Port Charlotte is another one. The one I kind of like from that is, what is it? The Islay barley.
Yep, the Islay barley.
Barley.
Yep.
That's a good. It's got a good amount of little peat and smoke, but not overwhelmingly so. But you still get kind of the fruits and the vanilla and all that, and so it's a really nice combination. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you because Scotch is a little bit of a passion.
It has it honestly, it tastes like a fresh summer's day along with the peat. Their barley edition. It's beautiful. So it just it's worth checking out. As Josh said, and as I totally agree, don't run out and buy a $500 bottle. Chances are you're actually going to be disappointed, and don't spend $500 in a bloody bottle unless there's 10 of you and you're splitting it, in which case, well, go mad. But the amount of stuff that you can get, and of course my prices are a little bit more up in Canada, but between $60 to $120, the world is your friggin' oyster. Grab something, try it, give it a shot.
There's so many good options now.
And if you're going cheap, and if you're willing to go blended, John Bar is a fantastic bottle for $24, and that has a lot of characteristics you're kind of looking for in a good. It's got a little bit of the peat, it's got a little bit of smoke to it. It offsets the sweetness and kind of the honeys and fruits that you find in there, and so John Bar is a fantastic bargain at $24 for a bottle, and I've got some on the shelf, and I love it. I go through one of those every 2 weeks or so. It's just a good kind of daily drinker. So there you have it.
Or hell, a Ballantine's. There's a reason they win awards every single year. There's a reason why Jim Murray carries it around as his base level scotch to try before he tastes something new. And again, it's not that expensive. Just drink. I think that's what we're saying. Drink scotch.
Drink and be merry.
So there's a lot to know about Scotch, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Single barrel versus single malt.
They can both be the same, but a single barrel literally came out of a single barrel.
Terminology.
The fun thing is, it could be a bad barrel. There could have been some sulfites that got in there, and it just tastes like baby vomit. And well, you're kind of screwed because you bought the single barrel. On the other hand, if it's brilliant, you can know that you are going to be the only person on the bloody planet who's tasted it, or anyone who got that single barrel, because it tastes different. When you're buying a 12-year-old scotch, it's actually coming from dozens, scores of different barrels. The youngest scotch in it is 12. There might be a 40-year-old in there, but when they say an age on the statement, that is the youngest whiskey that went into that. All from the same distillery if it's a single malt. If it's a blend, it could come from anywhere, but if there's an age statement on it, all that is just the youngest one in there. There could be older in there because they're trying to make it taste the way they want it to taste.
Consistent.
And not every barrel is the same. Yeah, consistency ain't easy.
It's the same thing about, like, what they do with coffee. I mean, they do coffee blends. That's why they do it. They try to blend all these different beans instead of, hey, I bought this one and it tastes like acid. And this other one that I bought a couple of weeks later from a different batch, it tastes really nutty and keen and nice. It's the same thing. I mean, they're working on consistency of flavor by, having these mix masters who have really
master
well
blenders.
Defined. Yeah, mix master. Are we ready for the next question?
I'm still letting all this deep information
I'm getting
sink
thirsty
in.
and thinking about going and grabbing an Ardbeg, to be honest.
Oh, back to some serious questions here. AW Pandering? Hey, what currently... I can't even parse it. What is currently the most you guys would justify spending on a case?
Sounds like a
$89.99.
Sebastian question.
I'm close to Jeremy on this one. I feel like there's so much good stuff where once you hit about $100, okay, there's two categories basically for cases. There's cases that are made with conventional rolled steel and plastic, and now there's like tempered glass on a lot of those for not much more money, and those have very, very diminishing returns past like $90 to $100, where I would not go past that point. And then there's the, limited production cases like the N Case M1 or the Dan Cases A FX4. I can't remember the actual name of it right now. It's the really, really small limited production stuff that they have Lian Li contracted to do. So if you want like all aluminum, then I personally would have a very hard time going over $200 myself. But for a standard case, you can get a lot of case for like $70 these days. So $100 is like my mental limit, where even when I review a case, it's like, this is $99. There's a lot out there for this price or a little bit less. So it makes it's very congested. Premium cases come out, and the way they can justify the price is how many fans does it come with. So I would go to like $120 if it was like fully appointed with like fans that would cost me $10 or $20 each. So that's the value. So it's like, okay, $60 for the case, and then I'm getting 4 $20 fans. But for steel and plastic, it's hard to go over like $90 these days, because there's a glut of cases in that $79 to $99 range. That's my limit. Unless you want like an in-win that's motorized and it has just gorgeous TIG welding and incredible framework, and it looks like it's part of like a high-end automobile or something. But no.
Back in the day, I bought a Lian Li. I mean, this is in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I, it was like $200 at the time, which was a significant chunk of change as compared to 2000 from 2018. And when I filled it all up and I carried it around, I was like, this is so light as compared to the Antec cases that I'm using. They were all stainless steel and that. This is fantastic. And then I used it for a while, and some of the standoffs would break because they're kind of brittle, and it just, I still got it downstairs. I'm not getting rid of it because it's worth its weight in gold, and it's incredibly light, and it looks nice. But I've never gone back to that kind of thought again. I think I've got the one I've got now is $130 just because it's pretty big. It was a Corsair, and it's very modular, and it's the 800D, the Obsidian 800D, I think. Yeah, I think that when I make stuff for like work, for a basic PC model, I get like a $50 Corsair case because it's functional. It's got enough space. It's got enough cooling. It's got all the external stuff we need, and it's only $50. And you buy, we have a super duper kind of stats machine, and I buy a $100 Rosewill rack mount case, and it works. So yeah, I mean, just the really tight-fisted money person that I am, I just couldn't see going past $130 anymore.
And I mean, the one I just picked up, like literally picked up from the post office today. I mean, sorry, Sebastian, you're gonna hate it because it's butt ugly, but the Rosewill Rise, it's insane. Up to 740 millimeter fans. It'll fit in the EATX because I wasn't sure if I was going to go EATX motherboard or not. And, nice PSU at the bottom. It's got an optical drive bay, and it's got a second optical drive bay with a punch out for 3.5, just in case you want to keep their 3.5 alive. So it's got everything. Everything I want.
You lost me at punch out. It's
there.
2018, Jeremy.
So?
There are metal punch outs on that case?
I bet you they're plastic. It's SEC steel, but I bet you that those things are plastic.
My first PC related
not a single
injury was thanks to one of those older case styles with the punch outs. I sliced open I think it was my left forefinger I was reaching in and I was getting a punch out, and my hand slipped and sliced open right on the edge of the steel. Back when, rolled steel edges were actually considered a feature.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
On the more
they were
expensive
safer than
cases?
the wide open ones. Those were razor blades.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing to me. Like Josh was saying, like
Uneven
$50
razor blades.
$50 cases now are fine, and they're actually reasonably safe to work inside. Used to buy a $50 case and you could flex the whole thing, and it was like razor blade metal and everything was really sharp.
So thin and ragged.
Well, in those cases back then, I mean, it was like that weird eggshell off white,
Yep.
and nothing really
Beige.
fit right. Oh, those were not the good old days.
Oh, Antec with their black cases that they came out with, were one of the first that have done that. It was fantastic. It was a renaissance. And it all went downhill.
Yep.
Anyhow.
Well, you had the Antec, that was the black case they came out with in late 90s. And didn't they keep that same design for like 5 or 6 years before they came up with the Antec 2? That had
Well,
the
it was
little
based
silver
on a
piece?
Chief Tech model.
Yeah, way back in the day.
Yeah, and so it was a Chief Tech case, and Antec either licensed from it or just plain stole. But yeah, then they they had a paint job to it. It was black, kind of grayish black and plastic rather than the beige, and it's kind of a big deal. I mean, they weren't the first to do that, but they were kind of one of the first mainstreams to do that. And they offered, the windows in the cases. They're crappily done, but it's windows you can buy for $80 in a case that weighed 50 freaking pounds.
So has anyone done the had to do a PC build at home, for reasons, whatever. In my case, it was to set up a Counter-Strike server for a LAN party. Didn't have any cases. Had milk crates though.
Oh no.
Yep.
Oh,
As long as they weren't conductive,
came in.
you're good to go.
Yep. Zip ties and milk crates.
I was gonna say, as long as you also have zip ties, you're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you can zip tie the expansion card to the edge of the milk crate, you don't need a case.
Oh no, you just let them
Really?
hang off the side. It was just to hold the motherboard to the case.
And
Oh, okay.
Vedman makes a good point here, and it's something to remind me. But do you remember the Antec Sonata black, piano black cases
Mm-hmm.
that had that
Yes, they were
piano
beautiful.
black finish and
Didn't they have
super
like the
quiet?
curved front
They were
panel? on the
terrible to
front
work
panel
with.
to hide
They
the
were-
optical
They were
drives.
pretty. What?
God, they were so pretty.
And if you ever wanted someone's fingerprints,
Yeah,
Let 'em play with it for a
those would
second.
Certainly show it. So,
You're-
moving along, because we're at hour and 10 minutes. Let's do this for
Yeah.
a couple more questions.
All right, next one up. I'm not sure if this is Durand pop or jar and pop. I don't know.
It's got to be jar and pop.
Jar and pop. Well, then it should be camel cased properly. Do you think there is any benefit in NVLink making its way to the, I presume, consumer GeForce line? I'm also presuming this is in relationship to the rumors of the new NVIDIA GeForce having.
It seems like SLI is in the consumer space is not as popular as it was. I mean, it still exists, but it's not as popular, and so I don't think NVLink is going to make it in the consumer cards anytime soon. Just because I think the market is primarily focused on single cards. The high speed SLI seems to work okay, but with fewer games out there supporting it, and with faster products that can handle higher resolutions and multiple monitors, I think it's just kind of getting put on the back burner. But NVLink, when you're talking about high density computing, high performance computing, yeah, that's certainly needed there, just because it's the workload. And so, consumer cards, I think they're kind of getting the shaft there. I mean, we could probably do some really interesting things, but it's not as cost effective. And I think the bigger question is the software support on the driver's side. It just is not as robust. I mean, I could be proved wrong. NVIDIA could say, you know what, we're really going to work on SLI and it's going to be seamless. It's going to just work out of the box with everything. And we need this high speed, connection in between the GPUs. And, you buy one, you're happy. You buy two, you're going to be ecstatic because we've taken the work away from all the developers and it just works out of the box. I guess if they went that way, then NVLink is certainly needed because bandwidth solves a lot of problems and latency solves a lot of problems, especially as something as complex as a GPU and the workloads that they're given. So do you guys disagree with that?
Well, I'm just seeing if I can quickly see it on the Steam hardware and software survey here, and it's not quickly coming up, but I recall like at its peak, multiple GPU hit like 2-point-something% of the market. Like it's such a minuscule amount of people that bother to do it that it's even hard to justify, looking at my game and saying, well, they have 2 GPUs and they're only seeing a 50% in performance increase, but it's 3 guys, screw them. Right? Like it's just such a small market share. I can't see NVIDIA putting a lot of effort into doing it unless it's essentially free. And it turns out, hey, it's actually a little bit cheaper to throw NVLink on than it would be SLI, or to just let the motherboard deal with it. Which, in the HPC kind of thing is how it's being done. It's not a bridge. It's being done via the chipset and compatibility.
That begs my question I've been thinking about here, Jeremy. Does NVLink even support GPU to GPU links, or is that strictly an HBA to the power architecture?
It's GPU to GPU.
So it is.
It's essentially PCI Express that has an NVIDIA flavor to it.
Right. So it is
It's
a very
data.
generic, adaptable interface. Is what I'm asking.
In theory, sure.
Good, yeah.
I mean, it's no power over it. I think NVLink is just all data and the
Right.
power associated with moving that data. But yeah, no, it's it's just essentially PCI Express lanes that are not officially PCI Express, from what I understand.
I think the
It's
real question is, when
fabric.
is Lucid Logix coming back? That's all we really need for multi-GPU.
The
Lucid
fabless
Logix is
company.
a fabless semiconductor. Nah, Ryan's not here to finish that statement, nor is Ken.
I went to one of their presentations at CES too.
Yeah.
It was as entertaining as I hoped it would be. It had a nice logo.
Yeah.
Dragon.
Okay, a couple of more questions.
All right, a couple more. Let's see here. Oh, I think this was an interesting one.
You think?
I think you're probably just gonna be like, no.
It's probably
Just
interesting.
wave it off. Next
Next.
question.
Just next. All right. Of course, it wrapped again. So annoying. Why are password cracking benchmarks? This is from Ericon again. Why are password cracking benchmarks not used as part of testing for CPU, and more importantly, GPUs?
So that we don't scare the absolute shit out of everyone? 5 or 6 years ago, where they were looking at the new NVIDIA architecture, and it's like, here, post your SAM file up to the internet and give us 5 minutes and we'll crack every password in there, and 9 times out of 10 it did it. It's only gotten worse.
Well, I think this is a good thing, though. I mean, we've seen the advent of modern hashing, iterative hashing, bcrypt. What's the other big one they use? In shash? Is that it? I don't know. But I think there's an analog here that's already there. Crypto mining. I mean, it's hashing, password hashing, mining hashing.
Yeah, but passwords per second might make you more money.
That would be an interesting article. What is more effective, hashing passwords or hashing blockchain?
Which one is more illegal?
And why is there a truck that says "Flowers by Irene" outside now?
Yeah, or snacks. Everyone loves snacks.
Beautiful.
Yeah. No, I think part of it is, how reproducible are the results, and it's just there's not been a whole lot of work with the benchmarking community with this kind of hashing out, and I think you're right. There's some fear there, and there's some, hey, we don't really want to support this, so we're not going to talk about it, but. Hey, here's another benchmark that's kind of like it, but it's supported around the industry and it gives out consistent numbers. With password hashing, it's kind of briar patch you don't want to jump into.
I think that's a acceptable answer. You can go into more into detail on some side effects of it, but yeah, this is purely don't incite panic.
Yeah, I'm sure the NSA has all of these stats.
I hate to support security through obscurity, but I guess we kind of are.
Well, it's caused things to get better in recent years. At least on Linux. I don't know about Windows.
Yeah.
It's harder to crack a Windows 10
It's not the
password,
operating
I know
system
that
that's the problem, it's the users.
You don't need rainbow tables when the password is Hunter5.
Yeah, yep.
Was
that Sebastian?
Yeah, I could see another website. It's like, hey Ryan, could you share that big password file that you use to test your GPUs with us, so we can get results from that? And where was that password file from? So yeah, by the way, we grabbed it from AOL as they were shutting down one of their old servers, and
yeah, good times. Does anyone remember AOL server? Or is that just a weird niche of the backwater of the internet?
Well, yes. To both.
To both? Okay.
I've never heard of it.
yeah. But anyway, I mean, the long and short of that is that I have never dug into it enough to give you a better answer than what I just did. There are others who are have far more expertise with this. But I just
asked the question.
Yeah, I it's something that I've never dug into, but it's something that perhaps with more education would be less scary. But you know what I think about education?
I think that a lot of things in life are a lot less scary with more education.
A mind is a terrible thing to waste, Josh.
It's gone already.
There's more to life than baskets of burgers and fries. Well, I guess there are fries.
Not much, though. No, it's the only thing I look forward to through the entire week.
Wow.
Yeah, anyway, next question.
Next question. Why doesn't NVIDIA and AMD offer virtualization support on their consumer GPUs?
Oh, even Jeremy could probably answer this one.
What the hell are you going to do with it? Seriously, what are you going to do with it? The vPro Intel series has been out for years, and people buy it because, well, it's got vPro on it. Like, do you know what that means? Do you have any intention of going out and getting VMware and starting to play with multiple GPUs? What? No, it just says vPro. It's good. Like, seriously, are you going to do some sort of weird Apple boot camp? Are you doing emulation for old ROMs? Yeah, okay, fine, but you're better off doing it on a CPU because it's going to look at a modern GPU architecture and be like, what the I don't know what to do with this. Give me the emulation of like a 16-bit thing. I'll be happy now.
Well, I think, the bigger thing is, the virtualization I think this guy's getting at is you can run several workloads and graphics workloads on one card, and you can have multiple outputs. So like that game streaming service that Ryan tested out all those years ago, it used virtualized GPUs that, somebody had a 1080p window and a real simple game. You could run multiple loads on a high powered GPU and it could stream it out to you. But I think that the biggest part is it's money.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
feature, and it's
Why
a feature
provide
they're trying
a
to sell.
professional level feature on a consumer card when you can charge more money for this feature?
Exactly.
It's a feature that professionals might want, so you already have a much more expensive product that is mainly differentiated by driver support and not necessarily at the hardware level.
Yeah, so
Well,
it's kind of the
NVIDIA sort of did
reverse
it
of the
better.
cow milk thing. Why give your milk away for free when you can sell the consumer a cow on
Well, at least this
an annual
consumer account.
basis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cows as a service.
Yes.
Kaz.
Anyhow.
Anything else on
So
that
yeah,
one?
I think it's primarily money why they don't offer virtualization on consumer chips. I mean, why would you do that? It's a cash cow for those who will actually leverage that versus Joe Schmo, who plays Rocket League on his machine and has no need for virtualization, which is included with their GPU for free. It's just not going to happen. Segmentation makes the margins go round.
Money. Money is always an acceptable answer.
All right, we're
I think we're ready to wrap this
I'm
one
a little
more up.
talked out.
A little talked out. Yep. Enough for one
Josh
more.
has done a lot of talking. We have to give Josh a break.
Yeah, I mean, somebody, if you have a question that someone else can answer, I would happily shut my mouth. Happily.
Well, I had one that you'd probably jump on, but we can hold that for later. Where is it?
Later.
Later. All right. I think UTP had another question earlier, but we'll go with this one. Specifically addressed to Jeremy, are you getting a more inexpensive TR1, Threadripper 1, or going full on Threadripper 2?
I went Threadripper 1 with a 1900X. It was on sale at a beautiful price and still is. Because Threadripper has got to be one of the most interesting things that's come out in a long time for me. It's no longer a matter of, this is a purely workstation machine. Is it a purely enthusiast machine? No, it's friggin' whatever the hell you want it to be. Well, do I buy the one with 20 PCI lanes? 20 PCIe lanes, get out of the way. No, I want all of the damn PCIe lanes. So I don't have to think about anything because going down the years, I mean, you're going to have 3 NVMe drives using PCIe 4X. Like, it's going to happen. You're going to have at least one GPU. Yeah, okay, well, you didn't buy a card or a motherboard that had Thunderbolt built into it, so you pick up an add-in card for that. You'll start looking at getting a second... Like, PCIe lanes are going to be a thing for quite a while, and it makes sense to get them. And so when Threadripper 2 came out, it's like, yeah, that's going to be north of $1,000, even for the less expensive ones, which is, it's like the $500 bottle of scotch. It's hard to justify for how my life is now. It's too much money on something that I'm only going to be using a very small part of. And I'm really excited it came out because all the Threadripper 1 parts are now about 50% off and honestly have stayed that way. So if you're thinking about upgrading, if you want to be really nifty, hold it for the next X399 boards. There's a slew of them coming out. There's a release just today that I haven't had a chance to put up yet. That was, if I look, a new Gigabyte Aorus Extreme coming out with, some bloody impressive features on it. And so, get that, because honestly, you might pay more for the motherboard than you did for the processor. I know I did.
Well, I think that they came out with the 1920 today for $250. That's a 12 core, 24 thread.
Or thread. Yeah.
That's nuts.
For $250?
That's so cheap. They want to get
That's-
rid of this stock, obviously, but that's so cheap.
$10 a core? Is that
No,
right?
it's silly stupid, and it will last you.
They're
But-
they're not slouches.
No. I mean, there is a good argument to say, it is more of a workstation PC, and if you ain't doing anything on it, you're kind of wasting your money. It's $250. Leave me alone. What do you want? And besides, I'm running Boink, so I'm doing SETI at home, LHC at home, Einstein at home. So yeah, this Threadripper is going to do a lot of work. It may be a little sad a couple of years from now, but it's going to do work, and it's going to be worth it.
I was kind of hoping for a, why not both?
Why not? Yeah, we have. I don't think we've seen that $250 price yet, but I think it was announced that they were going to be dropping it. So we'll see. Anyhow, is that all the questions? We're at an hour and a half now. Can people handle this amount of talking from us collectively?
I think not only can they handle it, they'll enjoy it.
Well, we certainly hope so. Well, thank you for enjoying. Thank you for joining us with this little Q&A. It was kind of off the cuff this morning because we only found out today that most of the people on the regular podcast were not going to be showing up. So we dragged up, Sebastian, and I think what's his name? Not Mary.
Jeremy.
Maury is a quick, so he could not join us. It was one letter off. But it was nice that Alex was able to come in and record all this. We didn't see Jim in the background. Always sad, but we'll
They
deal with
claim
it.
he's
But
still
it was a
alive. I haven't
nice,
heard from him.
cozy little time with the four of us. We had a nice discussion. There's a lot of really good questions from viewers, and hopefully we can do this again a little bit sooner. I think it's been a couple of years since we last had an open Q&A session, so this has been nice. Anyway, join us again next week for the podcast. I think most everyone will be back, and thanks for joining us for this session. And have a good night.
Bye
Good night, everyone.
And
Bye-bye.
Josh, this doesn't count as a mailbag. Sorry, you still got to do that.
Yeah. After
Who's
this,
doing the
Josh,
mailbag?
please
Not me.
stay on-
Nobody's
stay
talked to
on the
me about
line.
mailbag.
Not it.
Sebastian,
Josh,
are you doing the mailbag?
emanations from what I saw in Slack suggest that Josh will be doing mailbag. I infer it.
It's Wednesday night already. I haven't received any questions, or I thought Ryan already recorded it. I don't know. Well, we'll see. Well,
I don't know. I have not
We'll
heard
see.
anything.
people may get more of me than they want, which is usually what happens.
How can people get more of you than they want, Josh?
Ask Sebastian.
Subscribe to our Patreon. You get
Yeah.
even more, Josh.
He's been a CES with me. I
was gonna say,
nitpicked
if
him
you don't
about
want more of
everything. I
Josh-
dug into every aspect of his life, and I gave nothing in return. I am odious. I am insulting. But I do have a shiny head.
Josh, you were more hands off than I was expecting. And I appreciated that.
Well, I'm
Because him and Alan,
just because Alan warned you of this stuff doesn't mean it's actually true.
My eyes got wider and wider.
All right.
On that note. Oh. It was a good time.
Well, thanks again, all, for everybody for submitting your questions and joining in. It's been a lot of fun. It's nice to have something a little less organized and a little bit more spontaneous and just kind of fun to do. So appreciate you coming in, Alex and Sebastian and Jeremy. You didn't have to, but it was a lot of
the
fun.
hell else am I going to do on a Wednesday?
Play World of Warships.
Yeah, I was gonna sit here in front of my webcam anyway, so
Naked.
I'll be here another hour.
All right.
Ooh, Sebastian, someone in chat was asking, what's the stereo components on your shelf behind you?
This is the
Yeah, I want to hear about that
Marantz
too. What?
PM 8004 and CD 5004 combo. This amp is interesting because it's not made in China. It's actually made in their Japan reference factory. You can find these used for about $500 to $600. That may sound like a lot, but in the higher end, like made in Japan integrated amplifier world, that's a bargain. And this actually, if you find the service manual for this online, as I have, you will find that it is actually exactly the same amplifier as the much more expensive PM KI Pearl Lite, which was a like $2,000 amplifier. So basically, they repackaged it. They put it in a shell that has less copper. The other one had like a copper side and back, I think. And this retailed
Stop
for
the
$9.99.
waves from getting into the machine.
Yeah, for
Faraday
some reason,
cage, man.
that's supposed to be important.
Yeah.
But the toroidal transformer that's in this thing and the output stage, everything else is the same. This thing has 180 amp peak current capability.
Wow,
And a
that's a lot of
625
amps.
VA
But it's Wii.
transformer. Basically, even though it's only rated at 70 watts per channel at 8 ohms and 100 watts at 4 ohms, it can drive pretty difficult speaker loads without that kind of typical sort of compression or
The
dynamic
drop-off,
range
rather?
compression. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it offers really, really powerful bass too. So if you have lean sounding speakers, this thing will bring up bass that your like typical integrated amplifier in like the $500 range cannot do.
Back in the 90s, that was the one thing that Yamaha actually had, is that at pretty much every level of price, they had more amps that they offered than Sony. Sony had all this high wattage, but it was the
Anemic.
amps, the kind of current that really defined Yamaha to have tighter sound and better. Even though Sony could get loud, and they advertised saying 150 watts per channel. Well, the amps were pretty shitty.
Yeah. There's a not even going down the tube world.
Oh,
like
it
valve
is
a tube.
amplifiers.
No.
But in solid state, you can have 100 watts per channel, but if you can't deliver more than like 15 or 20 amps, then there are difficult to drive speakers that are just not going to sound right, or not going to get loud, or they're going to have
Muddled
their
out, and
dynamic
they just
range
can't
compressed.
get the transitions are just going to be awful.
Isn't
Although I
even
will
I
say
can understand
Yamaha
that it's
still,
money.
if you can find a AS 500 somewhere used for around $300, those are comparable to like $1,500 to $2,000 amplifiers. They're great. Yamaha makes really good, inexpensive stuff too.
They do.
So
Yeah, I miss my old Yamaha amp, but I've got an ancient Kenwood from before they were cool car stereos. Like, the damn thing's got to be 30 years old. It's been through a fire. It doesn't care. It just keeps going. And I feel bad. I don't want to throw it out because I like it. But at the same time, it's like, it could be nice to have a newer machine, but still does stereo good.
Okay, Vedman asked to ask, how much does that thing weigh behind you?
The amplifier?
Yeah.
Or this entire cabinet, which I moved the other day by myself.
Just the amplifier.
This, I
Oh,
think,
you didn't get your kid to
is
help?
27 pounds.
That's pretty impressive for something
All
that
right.
size.
And this is this is like a plastic front panel with aluminum, but most of that weight is the transformer and then the heat sink that's in this thing.
It's going to get toasty.
It's very hot. I mean, if they're stacked like this, and it looks nice to have them stacked with the CD player on top, but there's so little space here that you can put your hand near it and you just feel the heat like radiating out, and the bottom of the CD player gets really hot. So Class D is certainly a lot more efficient. I have my other amp is a Class D that's hooked up right now with some really hard to drive speakers, but this thing is great for like your typical like 87 or 88 decibel sensitivity speakers or higher.
Huh. You were the audio king. I know enough to be
not even
dangerous.
close.
That's about it.
I've pared it down significantly. One of the things that happens when you have a child, I've discovered, is that you can't.
They're
They
awfully
put their
hard on
fingers through
stereo
amps?
equipment.
Yeah,
And speakers?
actually, funny story. My soon-to-be 3-year-old while climbing up the furniture in the living room earlier today, knocked over one of my Hanson speakers in the living room and dented it. I was not
That
happy
must
about
make
that.
you very happy.
No. But it's my own
Papa.
fault because I had one of those Diamond Select next generation enterprise models. Actually, the box is right here. And that was up on top of a shelf in the living room. And he wanted it. So he was climbing for it. And I was out of the room. So he
You
was not
wanted it
injured, but my
bad.
speaker was.
Oh, that sucks.
I can't have nice things. I can't have my Diamond Select Enterprise D on display in the living room, apparently.
Just can't do it.
Well, you can, but it's going to have battle damage now, which you used to have
Right,
to pay
it'll
extra.
be I'm sure it's like Star Trek Generations version of the Enterprise at that point.
So, with one of the, I understand the thing with child because I had a cable box that was at about navel level with a small child, namely about 3 years old. And we were going to swap it out, and I picked it up, and I heard all this kind of chunking through it. Well, it had this slot in the front for a memory module, and my kid found some change, and he thought that the change fit really nicely in where that thing would go, and it was just so crappily kind of built that there was a huge gap in between, where it plugged in and whatnot. And so all the change went into the bottom of the cable box, and I picked it up and I shook it, and it's like, are you kidding me? I took it to the cable place, they took it out. It was like $3.78 worth of change that was in that box that my child had deposited. Fortunately, it gained no interest. But yeah, kids, stereo equipment.
I actually had to get rid of the subwoofer I had in my living room last year because it had a port, and my son discovered that I think it was Brio trains or what he was shoving into the port, and there was no way for me to retrieve them without literally taking the speaker out and reaching through like the 10-inch opening to get all the toys out and then screwing it all back in. And then it happened again. I'm like, all right, never again. As soon as I get these toys out, it's going on eBay and I'm buying a sealed box, which, by the way, has simply become a step stool to get to higher pieces of furniture. So I may just go no sub. I'll just be that guy with a sound bar and nothing else. I'll sell all the home
Yeah.
theater equipment.
Yeah.
Now, the best thing
Wow.
for a speaker ever is to live with a friend who's got a pit bull. Because when they're happy, their tails go, and their tails are about 1,500 foot-pounds.
They could
Right.
power a small city if you hooked it up to a
Yes,
generator.
So she is just really, really happy, and thump, 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 and goodbye cone, like, shattered inside.
Ugh.
You can't say anything because the dog was really happy, but you're still crying.
I don't have any.
You can't
Nice.
nail polish that one back together.
No.
Surprisingly, I don't have any good sound gear demolition stories.
Do you have any kids?
No.
Well, that explains it.
Well, yeah, okay.
Kid or large
Yeah.
dog. Other than that, you're probably good.
I got a brand new cartridge on my turntable. This was like 3 years ago. Literally had just installed it like the day before. And this was, I think, in the winter. I was foolishly wearing like a long sleeve, like fleece or sweater or something.
Did you
I
snag
reached-
the needle and bent it?
Yeah, what actually happened was
Oh.
the lift lever got caught in my sleeve, and when I reached across to pick something up, and the turntable's tone arm went flying across the top of the platter and broke the needle, and I actually ripped 2 of the little leads. I don't know if you've ever worked on a turntable like tone
Uh-huh.
arm, but they have the tiniest little cables that go into the back of the cartridge. I destroyed it. The whole thing was a loss. It had to be rewired, and I sold it for
That's
parts.
awful. Anyhow, I got to get cracking.
Yep.
Other stuff to do, but thanks for joining us all. We really appreciate it, and hope you enjoyed the regular show and the after show. Hopefully we can do this again in a couple of weeks/months. People always have
Well, since
questions.
Ryan doesn't show up for work anymore, I mean,
Yeah, I know. He's always on vacation. He's jet setting across the world. Heard he got to
What a
drive
life.
some Ferraris or some stuff like that. Bastard. At least I got to Cambridge last year. That made me happy. I got to drink in the Eagle pub.
Hey, when were you in Cambridge? I was in Cambridge last year.
This is April 2017.
Oh,
End
I
of
was
April?
in December.
You were there in something for audio, right? For only like 3
it was around
days.
it was like St. Nicholas
Yeah.
Day. I think I was there on the 6th or the 7th or something.
and Josh was out on a limb.
I was there for like 5 days. So, all right, guys. Thanks for everything.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
I'll miss you.
y'all
And a
later.
safe
No,
tomorrow.
you won't.
Goodbye.
Later.